Hi, for those who are already in the webinar, we're going to give people a couple of minutes just to sign on and then we'll get started. Okay, great. So hi all, thank you for making the time to attend our webinar on Ayoa. Ross McGee will be hosting our webinar as an Ayoa expert. We will be presenting the software's features and how it can support dyslexic users in their sectors. If you do have any questions, please can you use the chat box, which you all should have access to. There will be a Q&A segment at the end of the webinar. We are also using Interact Streamer, so captioning should be available if you click the captioning icon at the bottom right corner of your screen. Ross, I'll hand over to you from here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Connor. I'm just going to share my screen with everyone now, so hopefully you'll be able to see that along with myself in a moment. Hi everyone. My name is Ross and I'm the customer onboarding specialist here at Ayoa. And actually also one of the people at the company who initially drove for it to become a piece of assistive software and really grow into that area. So to be here today is really gratifying, and I'd like to start off by saying thank you to Microlink for inviting us to be part of your webinars during Dyslexia Week. I myself, in fact, visited the team at Microlink last November before the year of 2020 crashed down upon us to share with them Ayoa and what we are hoping to offer the neurodivergent community. So it's great that we are now in a position, thanks to Microlink and the hard work that we've been doing since, to then be in a position to share with you Ayoa and explain why we do and what we do. So today, like Connor said, I'll basically be introducing you to Ayoa, letting you know what we do and why we do it, how this has changed over the last few months, why it has become more important than ever that neurodivergent individuals are given the support they need. I'll show you some of our best features for both students and professionals, and then at the end, we'll hopefully have time for a little bit of a Q&A section. Overall, I think today should be just under an hour, but we like to think that Ayoa is an exciting piece of software and one which, thanks to its bright colors, does keep people engaged. So hopefully you'll stay with us all the way through to the end when I'll give you details on how you can access Ayoa for free. So to give you a bit of an overview of what Ayoa is and a background of how we came to be where we are today, I think it would help if we start off when we first got in contact with Microlink, as that was nearly a year ago now somehow, and it's also not too long after we began to make Ayoa more neuro inclusive. So when we saw the team all that time ago, we were admittedly just taking our first steps into the world of assistive technology, and we had a lot to learn. That's not to say that we weren't prepared, but we left with a car full of feedback, and good feedback too, like feedback always is. But aside from some of the improvements we learned that we needed to make to our software, the most valuable thing which we took away was that we needed to gain even more feedback. We were learning as we went when it came to neurodiversity and assistive technology. So in that brief window between November and March of 2020, we effectively toured the UK, wherever we could, visiting assessment centres up and down the country, and took on board what they had to say about Ayoa as a piece of assistive software. I'm pleased to say that the resounding feedback was mainly positive, and I think that was the case due to our background and our history at Ayoa. So for those of you who don't know much about us, our company is a staunch supporter of innovation and finding better ways to get things done, whilst also respecting individualism, meaning that we always look to offer flexible and customizable ways of working. Our commitment to these principles aren't half-hearted in any way whatsoever, and I think they're best highlighted by the fact that our founder, Chris Griffiths, is a TEDx speaker and a best-selling author on creativity. So with their joint passion for mind mapping, both Chris and Tony co-authored books together upon the method and produced iMind Map, which is one of the most successful mind mapping pieces of software to be used worldwide. So as you can hopefully see, Ayoa was sort of always destined to be a piece of software which could be beneficial to people with neurological differences. But to say that the feedback we received painted us as perfect, well, that would be a straight up lie. It would undermine our work we have done since, and anyway, there's no such thing as perfect. What it did mean though, was that although 2020 has been an incubation period for many, as a new piece of assistive software with a lot of work to do, plus millions of people facing the prospects of working from home, for us, the last few months has been anything but sedentary. In fact, I say that it has seen us redouble our efforts when it comes to making Ayoa Neuro Inclusive, and that hopefully neatly leads us on to why we do and what we do. So to put it into 4 words, Ayoa is a Neuro Inclusive, collaborative digital workspace. Now, that sounds like a load of words just being jumbled together, but each one, in fact, accurately describes an element of Ayoa, which in contrast is a very visual, clear, and intuitive piece of software. This is because at its core, Ayoa is formed of mind maps and task management, 2 resources which function to simplify a whole range of things, and in the case of Ayoa, 2 resources which are highly flexible and colourful, thus can be used simultaneously. With the foundation of Ayoa being set up in this way back in June of 2019, myself and my colleagues came to realise that Ayoa had the potential to be extremely useful for people with neurological differences. It turned out that our intuition was correct, as we quickly achieved accreditation from both the DSA and the British Dyslexia Association as an approved piece of assistive software. So up until November of 2019, what we were doing was providing users with a collaborative piece of software which, thanks to its visual nature, was beneficial for people with neurological differences. Now, when you do that, the why is pretty obvious: to help neurodivergent people achieve their goals and work in a way which is best for them. However, with the onset of the pandemic, which we've had this year, making remote working far more likely for both students and professionals alike, we knew that our why was set to become even more important, meaning that what we do had to be taken to the next level. At the same time, the unprecedented situation of society shifting to a digital realm meant that not only were lives set to change, but definitions too. This is important because the social model of disability says that disability is caused by the way society is organized. The society we are now living in is in no way set in concrete. It is still forming, and if the structure of society determines disability, with a new one currently in creation, we have the chance to ensure that neurodivergent individuals are not placed at a disadvantage. So, as mentioned, thanks to the format of Ayoa, its emphasis upon color, customization, and organization, it had a solid foundation already for helping neurodivergent individuals. What we wanted to do, though, was increase that capability and make neuro-inclusivity a cornerstone of our growing digital world. And we went about this in a variety of ways. First of all, we actively reacted to the feedback which we received and set about implementing new features some of which are staples of most pieces of assistive technology, and I'll show you those later on. But alongside those visible and noticeable changes to Ayoa, we knew that we could also make tangible and lasting improvements in other ways too. So we didn't just want to provide software to help neurodiversity, we wanted to do something to improve awareness of it and remove the stigma surrounding it too. Some of what I'm going to say right now related to this might be very well known by everyone listening today, but I think there is certainly no harm in repeating it to remind us all of why we're involved with assistive technology and why we all value neurodiversity. Because after all, neurodiversity is often classed as the last great social movement to emerge from the 20th century. As great as that might be, it also consequently means that for many people, it's only just becoming heard about. And some people still wouldn't even be able to tell you what it is. And that I think definitely should be worth remembering. Because considering the work we do, we take for granted that people know about neurodiversity already. But in reality, we're in a small bubble, a very small one which is growing, but can hopefully continue to do so. And ultimately, there still requires more work to be done. But that's actually quite bizarre because it's estimated that 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent, which is a lot of our population. And that number itself is probably an underestimation too, considering that awareness of it is still growing. That in the past, children with neurological differences frequently got labeled as problem children and dismissed. And in some cultures, neurodiversity just isn't really talked about at all. But the main points I'm wanting to make as to why we believe that we shouldn't just provide software, that we should in fact also help neurodiversity further, can be summed up by the following. Only 16% of autistic adults in the UK are in full-time employment. 7 out of 10 neurodivergent workers say they have experienced discrimination at work. 4 out of 10 unemployed people who are using Job Centre Plus are dyslexic. And in 2018, it was learned that 72% of HR professionals said that consideration of neurodiversity wasn't included in their people management practices, and 17% just simply said that they didn't know. All of that needs to change. And right now, it needs to more than ever, because remote working, although favorable for some people, has ultimately been forced upon a lot of us recently. The issue here is that whilst 2020 has been difficult for all of us to traverse, for many neurodivergent people in particular, not all necessarily, the disruption we have faced and the requirement of new ways of working has culminated in a perfect storm. Not only do people with dyslexia, ADHD, autism, etc. have to worry about the prospect of scrambling an at-home office together and dealing with homeschooling. In addition, the lack of routine, the greater reliance upon written communication, the increase in screen time, the extra distractions, the lack of mentorship and guidance from managers, and so much more will more than likely have only accentuated the problems which they have faced. So with all of that existing negligence and that storm I mentioned really hitting hard as remote working took hold, we took it upon ourselves to contribute to the work being done to raise the profile of neurodiversity in a hope that it will inspire further change. The action which we took has been vast and varied, and we are looking forward to sustaining it. But to summarize and share with you some highlights, we created a collection of blogs and shared them across all social platforms. We partnered up with neurodiversity experts plus companies who provide access to work support to present a series of interactive webinars covering topics such as neurodiversity, remote working, plus mental health and well-being. We've begun a DSA newsletter, and we've also begun producing and sharing short interviews with neurodiversity consultants. And we have so much more yet to come. The impact, I'm pleased to say, has been tangible. The numbers of people it's seen us talk to who we have never spoken to before about neurodiversity is undeniable. And at the end of the day, the more we talk about things, the more they can change. So through our software principally, but also all the additional work we have done related to neurodiversity, we hope that we have played a small part in the quelling of the perfect storm to disrupt neurodivergent individuals, which has arisen this year. Overall then, the why we do and what we do has really been brought to the fore this year at a rate which nobody could have anticipated, but in a weird way, that's in fact a positive from this whole situation. It has seen us accelerate our neurodiversity work, which has translated into more students accessing a modern and highly collaborative piece of mind mapping software to help them with their studies. It has resulted in massive corporations beginning their own neurodiversity journey and learning about the concept for the first time. Professionals across all industries finding a better and more inclusive way to work through this unpredictable time, and the overall awareness of neurodiversity itself being bolstered. For us, we see three main areas where we can make an impact when it comes to improving neurodiversity and society's attitude to it. Raising awareness is number one through the educational work, like I've already been telling you about, and that we will continue to do. Secondly, helping to form a digital society, which will not lead to people with neurological differences being classed as disabled. This isn't a small feat, but by combining our educational work and improving Ayoa itself, we hope that we can contribute to the restructuring of our society, prioritizing neuro inclusivity so that it becomes standard. And finally, improving the prospects of young neurodivergent individuals. Again, this won't be easy given the fact that a lot of processes and tests remain formatted in ways catered for neurotypical people, that neurodivergent individuals frequently display a lack of confidence and are unaware of their strengths. But with our software and educational work, we hope to increase the confidence of young people with neurological differences and give them the resources they need to thrive and therefore achieve, putting them in a better position for later life. I actually found a quote from NASA, who heads up Microlink, which relates to this point. And it was saying that over 30,000 dyslexic graduates leave higher education every year, yet only 2,300 people have been helped by access to work in a year. The question quite simply is then, what happens to all those people? Well, what it says to me is that there might have been a lost generation after the World Wars. There are concerns that there might be another one currently in economic terms. But with that many dyslexic graduates effectively either not gaining employment or working, yet in a way which they are not properly supported, every year we are missing out on talent. So I hope from what I have said so far and shared with you, that you are able to see how our actions are contributing to those three areas. But now that we are going to turn to the software itself, you'll be able to witness more clearly how Ayoa directly helps people. So let's return to Ayoa as the piece of assistive software, which I have in fact been using this whole time. As mentioned earlier, it is a neuro-inclusive, collaborative digital workspace. And every one of those words are important. So let's break them down. First and foremost, we have neuro-inclusive. And what do we mean by that? Well, we know that Ayoa can help people with neurological differences, but we also know that in any team or a situation where you collaborate with other people, you will definitely work with a mixture of neurotypical and neurodivergent individuals. With our vision for reordering society to ensure it doesn't render people disabled, we therefore want to make sure that both neurodivergent and neurotypical people can work together to the best of their abilities, not one or another, and that is why we call Ayoa Neuro Inclusive. It is accommodating for all brain types. Next up, we have collaborative. Now, Ayoa can be used by individuals just personally, but we think it is also really important to highlight its capability to enable people to work together in real time. Not only is that a strength of ours in comparison to other mind mapping pieces of software, but it is especially important for how we want to enable everyone to work together, no matter where they are and regardless of their neuro status. Thirdly, we have digital. This embeds Ayoa's commitment to technology and moving things forward continuously. We allow users to mind map, project manage, and communicate, but how we do so shall always be forward thinking. And finally, Ayoa is a workplace. Presumptions of a workspace are transitioning massively, but some fundamentals remain, such as a workspace is where you get things done, and that is one of Ayoa's primary objectives. So no matter where you are, Ayoa is designed to help its users achieve their targets. With all of that in mind, we have tried to encapsulate the tools and resources people require to do their work, yet in a way which is digital, collaborative, and neuro-inclusive. As mentioned before, the core of Ayoa is formed between mind maps and taskboards, and this is reflected clearly on our homepage, which we are now looking at. You will see that on the left, we have our mind maps, which exist to help people create, share, nurture and grow their ideas, plus organize their ideas, projects, even their life, turn processes into visual resources, or even plan whole campaigns and projects, along with a lot of other uses too. In addition to these ways which our mind maps can be used, there is also a whole case for them being particularly useful for people with neurological differences. As mentioned, they are a way for assisting organization, but they are also very visual, colorful, and flexible, which results in a way to aid memory, structuring, and means that you're not so reliant upon using words. And then on the right of our homepage, we have our taskboards, which is the more serious side of Ayoa with the project management and the task management. It's designed to help users stay on track, remain organized, reduce stress, and most importantly, get things done. Once again, organization and structuring are aided via our taskboards, which instantly makes them helpful for neurodivergent individuals. Unlike some task management solutions though, we have made sure that, like our mind maps, they too are highly visual, colorful, and customizable. Now, despite these two being split down the middle on the home screen, they do in fact cooperate with each other. They are not mutually exclusive, which is a presumption some people wrongly hold when they see our home screen set out in this format. But alongside these two predominant features, doing much of the work to enable workers and students to achieve most of their goals. In addition, throughout Ayoa, there are many different ways to directly communicate with people, along with other fundamental functions. Collectively, these all come together to reflect a workplace in a digital capacity. But what we are really interested in today is how this is achieved in a way which enables neurodivergent people to be included. I briefly touched upon some of the ways which mind maps and taskboards achieve this, but what I'm going to do now is walk you through some use cases of these for students and professionals, whilst focusing upon features within Ayoa, along with our formatting, which is particularly beneficial for people with neurological differences. There are of course many ways which mind maps can be applied by professionals, which I'm sure you are all aware of, but given the remote working situation a lot of people are currently facing, I think a good example to start off with would be this one here. And it is a mind map which is used to plan, structure, and conduct a virtual meeting. With Zoom meetings becoming commonplace currently, they throw up new problems which aren't as prevalent in meetings which occur in person. One potential issue to start off with, especially for individuals with autism who generally like to be prepared and work in an ordered manner, is employees not knowing what to expect from a meeting. This can, however, be overcome by building a mind map template to structure a meeting and sharing it before it begins. For example, a manager could build a mind map such as this to set out the areas they wish to cover in the meeting, and being mindful of the potential neurodiversity within their team, they could then share it with their employees in advance by simply going to the top right here, clicking on the Add button, and then selecting the people which they'd like to include in their meeting. A simple action such as this is a great first step for making virtual meetings a less stressful experience for participants. But a mind map such as this for a virtual meeting also has more beneficial uses. Because Zoom calls, although they might be the nearest we might actually get to normal meetings right now, being able to read body language via a screen and knowing when someone would like to speak makes the flow of it disrupted, and normal social conventions, well, they go out the window. Once again, for people with autism in particular, conducting themselves appropriately via a Zoom call and feeling comfortable can therefore be tricky, especially when it offers an opportunity for dominant personalities to talk over others. With a collaborative mind map in Ayoa, though, such as this, it offers a space for everyone involved to share their thoughts without even having to shout over one another. Because anything which someone adds, which they can do by clicking on the branch and then selecting the green button. So it might be to design advert logo. As long as they are in the mind map with other people, it will also be seen by everyone else on their screens, no matter where they are, because it updates in real time. Simply put, the best ideas will find a space to be seen. So not only will ideas be guaranteed to be shared, but also relevant ones too. That's because by having a meeting set up like this in a visual structure for a template, it gives a solid overview from the very start of what the priorities are for the meeting. As a result, debate and conversations will remain on track, hopefully curtailing any off-topic discussions and tangents, which sometimes more frequently arise with neurodivergent colleagues who have sporadic but also brilliant thoughts. Not that we necessarily want to limit those. When within a mind map such as this, though, it can be enhanced even further for neurodivergent colleagues, and those with dyslexia in particular, by simply going to the options bar in the top right corner up here. The options area for software is admittedly usually quite a boring section, but we in fact have a selection of hidden gems waiting up here for our users. The one I'm really interested in currently, though, is that of background color, which is the 5th one on the list. As you can see, we make it easy to select from a range of pastel colors, including at the very front of the list, the popular and most commonly used mellow, creamy yellow color. So that is there specifically to help people with dyslexia. And in addition, it's also a good point during today to note that the font used throughout Ayoa is that of Open Sans, which has purposely been selected because it is a dyslexia-friendly font. An additional really useful feature to mention, though, whilst within this particular mind map, is called the Idea Bank, which can be activated per mind map by returning to the options bar in the top right. You'll see that when I select it from about halfway down the list, it then appears in the top left-hand corner of my screen. The Idea Bank is really useful because when you're in a meeting situation, for example, it acts as a space for you to save your ideas, which you think will be useful, but aren't immediately relevant to your mind map. So, as mentioned, neurodivergent people often have lower organization skills, but also possess the ability to link things together in ways which might not at first appear obvious. The Idea Bank is great for them then, because it means no longer will they have to scribble their impromptu thoughts on a scrap piece of paper and potentially lose it, or blurt it out at the wrong time and disrupt a flow. Instead, they can just type it up here and save it, and save as many as they like by simply pressing the Enter key on their keyboard, and then it will save it securely. Then later on, at a point when it becomes more applicable and impactful for their mind map, they can simply drag and drop it wherever they like. And as you can see, it's generated itself where we asked it to be placed. So the Idea Bank is actually one of our most loved features by users who know that it exists, but so often it unfortunately goes undiscovered. A penultimate feature available from the options bar, again from the top right, to share with all of you, which I think is particularly great for during meetings, is that of enable voting, which is near the bottom of the list. Within Ayoa, there are many different ways to communicate with others, including via a messaging section, which is available per branch in a mind map, but we also have the ability to quickly share approval via a voting system. Once activated, like I've just done, you will notice that when I click onto a branch, there are other options. Along with all the other options available, there is now also a thumbs up icon. By clicking this icon here, colleagues can quickly and easily vote for a branch. So it could be an idea which they'd like to take forward from a meeting and see it progress. It's anonymous too, so not only are no words needed, people also don't need to worry about stipulation on who voted for what. Now, finally, at the very bottom of our options bar, you might have already noticed that despite everything I have been saying so far about whilst using mind maps as an example for how to conduct virtual meetings without any video conferencing assistance whatsoever, well, at the very bottom of the options bar, there is in fact now the ability to start a video meeting directly from your mind map. We released this much awaited update about last week, and I think it builds upon Ayoa's flexibility because some people do like face-to-face communication because it can still make things easier to get across. And sometimes from a well-being side of things, it's just good to see people. So we now have it so that it can be used alongside mind maps and meetings. And if you were to do that, you would get the best of both worlds. You'd be able to ensure that there's structure and ensure that everyone can contribute via the mind map, whilst also being able to see each other face to face with our available video integration. Or you could just use either one exclusively. Whatever your preference, the main thing is that the option is there to choose them. So that concludes our first use case, and I'm now going to show you one which is more applicable for students by going across to another mind map, during which I'll talk in more depth about specific mind mapping features which Ayoa has to offer. You'll see from this example that it is the same style of our previous one, which is known as a speed map. This means that the mind map itself is very structured and ordered thanks to the fact that the direction which the branches go when they are created is predetermined, as you can see in this example here. The result is that it's brilliant for quickly firing your ideas down and granting structure for those who maybe need help creating it or those who like to work in a neat fashion anyway. This particular speed map is for a student breaking down a book, which they are going to use as a source for their essay. The use of a speed map in this scenario is therefore perfect because it evenly and clearly breaks up sections. Within Ayoa though, thanks to the visual and digital nature of it, organizing content can be enhanced by customizing the style of branches. This is achieved by clicking onto a branch, like I'm doing now, before selecting the paintbrush icon.
Sorry, Ross, I'm not sure if you can hear me. We've had a bit of a freeze moment.
Oh, sorry. Are we still frozen?
Oh, it's clearing up now. Thanks, Ross.
Okay. Sorry, guys, must have just frozen for a moment. But what I was saying was that basically we are at the section of where you can customize your branches to make it better reflect your thoughts. And to do this, all you've got to do is click onto a branch, select the paintbrush icon, and then you are faced with a side panel, which is unique to each branch. And every single branch has their own side panel. So from here, I could change the style of the bubble. I could also change the color of it too. And being able to edit your mind map in this way, you can effectively implement a key so that things are conveyed visually without words. For instance, you could have everything in a bubble icon like I've got now that is also orange, symbolizing that you have thought about it, but maybe it requires further thought before you're happy with it and you want to move forward, at which point you would turn it into a green bubble, for example. Or in contrast to this, you could color coordinate to make your mind map better organized, like we clearly have in this example here. So in this instance, I'd revert it to be a standard red bubble in the sort of oval shape, so that it's nicely grouped together. However you decide to customize your bubbles and branches, the main thing is that the flexibility to alter and edit them exists, enabling people to set things out in a way which makes sense to them. As long as things make sense to you, that is the main thing. And mind mapping really embraces this. It isn't set out in a linear, restrictive fashion, which makes it legible for everyone to understand. It's a space for you to work in a way which makes sense to you. So this is great because sometimes being able to connect things together without words and instead doing so visually can be really handy, as it gets you to your point really quickly. In Ayoa, you can achieve this by selecting one branch and then holding down Control if you're using a Windows PC on your keyboard, or Command if you're using an Apple Mac. And as you can see now, it allows me to select multiple branches at the same time, resulting in this pop-up appearing. The paintbrush is there again, allowing me to mass edit the style of my branches. But the one which is really helpful in this situation is that of the third icon here, allowing me to create a connection arrow between the branches. And as simply as that, with no lengthy explanation whatsoever and no words, I have illustrated my logic by stitching together two areas of my mind map. So right now, this mind map is in a format which, like I said, is very personal to the person who created it, or maybe those who are contributing to it. But if we return to the options bar in the top right of our screen again, you'll see that dead on halfway, there is the ability to export. Not only can we export as a PDF on the left here, effectively extracting a screenshot of our mind map, we can also export it as a Word document here. This is yet another development we added following feedback, and as I'm sure you all know, is invaluable for both students and professionals who may do their planning or even their writing in a mind map, but then are required to submit their work in a more widely accepted file style, for example, a Word document. So that is there to change your mind map drastically, but whilst within one, you might find yourself wishing to change the view of it for numerous reasons. The first one we are going to look at is due to distractions and potential stress, because we all know that mind maps can quickly grow into massive beasts of color very easily. So if that is the case, all you have to do is click onto a branch and then at the base, select this collapse icon. By pressing it, it will shut off everything which comes subsequent, instantly reducing the content of your mind map. And making it easier for you to focus on the remaining sections, which you can choose to leave. And as you can see, it's a lot more condensed than what we had before. For people with ADHD, this is therefore a great feature to be aware of, plus those who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by everything they have going on in their mind map. So it's really good for those two instances. If you would then, however, like to see the big picture again, all you have to do is click on the expand button at the base of the branch and everything else will reappear, allowing you to see the big picture all over again. Another reason for changing a mind map style might be because it no longer aligns with your goals, or simply because it isn't what you prefer to use in comparison to your colleagues or fellow students. If that is the case, people can go to the options bar and select the first option, which is called View As. As you can see, it allows you to choose from the other different styles that are available in Ayoa. In direct contrast to the speed map, there is the organic map, which offers users the freedom to draw lines in any direction which they like, as if they are mind mapping on a blank piece of paper with a pen or a pencil. This style is therefore really good for getting creative with, or for strengthening and reflecting thoughts and logic visually. If I go across to another mind map now, you'll see what I'm on about and also what it looks like. This example, which I'm just going to load up, is for a pretend student group working remotely to plan and create a group presentation, which they might have to do for their literature degree. Instantly, you can tell the difference between the speed and the organic. It's a lot more sketch-like and the branches are far more flexible. This is possible because you can maneuver the branches wherever you want. You can also select hold of them to curve their joints, which I'm just going to do with this one here. So as you can see, you can manipulate it however you want to better reflect your thoughts. And that is basically the difference which you get within the organic style, along with the flexibility. So I'm now going to return to the View As section in the very top right from the options bar, and I'll show you how you can take it to the Radial View directly from this mind map. When it loads up, you will notice that it looks a lot different, but once again though, you'll also notice that exactly the same information is here, just reflected in a different format. Alongside the real-time updates, which enables Ayoa's collaboration, this is the other marvel of Ayoa's core functionality, the ability for users to switch to a view which is personally best for them without affecting others. In this Radial View, we are gifted with another way to visualize content, with segments instead of branches. Similar to how you could collapse branches, here, when you click onto a segment, not only are you given the usual options of customization, uploading attachments, adding messages, etc., you can also focus in by selecting this second icon here. What this does is close off everything else and leaves you only with that which is related to that segment. For instance, if I was concerned with just working on the themes of the presentation one day, I could click on the theme segment and then focus in on that. And then say, if my area of the presentation was gender over here, I could focus in onto that layer too. And if there are any further segments after that, only they would be showing. So as you can see, the radial map is a great way to visualize in an alternative format, but also focus in on specific areas of work without distraction. And then afterwards, also quickly revert to seeing the big picture again, like we've got here. That about rounds off the mind mapping section of Ayoa. There is admittedly so much more to show you that I've only scratched the surface of everything in Ayoa when it comes to mind maps. But today we've just mainly focused on its features which help people with neurological differences. There are obviously many more instances where our mind maps can be used for both students and professionals. But now we're going to look at the task and project management side of things. This is found on the right of our home screen and is collectively known as Taskboards. You will notice that, like our mind maps, we yet again have 3 interchangeable styles available, continuing the flexibility which is found throughout Ayoa. On the left, we have the canvas view, which is very visual and basically inspired by mind maps. In the center, there is the traditional workflow style, which is a linear list way of working. And then on the right, there is the Gantt timeline, which is very time orientated, a bit like a calendar and great for those who have deadlines. The beauty of our task boards is that yet again, everyone can see changes made in real time if they are using them collaboratively. Obviously, people can still use them by themselves if they so wish. But also, if we imagine that we are all in one task board together, and I have it open in the canvas view because I prefer working in a visual manner, that won't dictate that everyone else has to see it in that style at the same time. For example, someone else could have it open in the Gantt timeline, another one in the workflow, etc. Overall, we therefore enable everyone to still work together collaboratively, yet in a way which best suits them individually, bringing out the best in everyone for teams. Like with mind maps, the applications for task boards are infinite. And together, they therefore really do cover nearly all bases for work to be completed and achieved. For instance, that could be used by a marketing team to come up with ideas. And architects could use a mind map with clients to design a building and receive feedback before using a task board to plan its construction. A mind map could be used to assess a client's wealth ambitions, and then a financial advisor could use a task board to stay on top of everything they have to do for their clients. An HR team could even visually map out onboarding processes for new employees, which would then be accompanied by appropriate resources and details, and then share a task board with the new recruits and their managers so they can ensure they are getting their initial task done. Likewise, for students, they could plan out their essay or their presentation, for example, and then execute it with precision via a task board which will function to make things clear, organized, and achieved on time. I'm going to go into a task board now, though, which is to run a marketing campaign, to show you the different styles and how they all work, along with emphasizing features which can assist people with neurological differences. So this example here is in the canvas mode currently. and therefore wonderfully displaying the visual nature of Ayoa. The formatting of this style is really popular with a lot of our dyslexic and autistic users for obvious reasons, who give us great feedback about it, so we're really proud of our Canvas mode here. What you're currently seeing is categories as the big rings, and then within each of these, there are tasks, which are represented as the smaller coloured bubbles. It's really aesthetic with the task colours matching those of the categories, but if I was to drag and drop a task into another category, you'll see that they update to reflect the right colour. I'll just drag that one back now. It's therefore very clear that what we have here is not your typical piece of project management. Instead, it is noticeably different, visual and colourful. But this is just one style of Ayoa Taskboards, as it is important for everyone to be able to work in a style which best suits them. Therefore, if users go to the top right, they can choose to switch whenever they like between a very visual, mind map inspired Canvas mode, which we are currently seeing, to a more traditional linear list workflow style, or even to the final option, which is the time-orientated Gantt timeline. Whatever works best for them. Like with Ayoa Mind Maps, flexibility therefore continues into our taskboards and can be found again by how categories can be named whatever they like. I could change this. Online presence. You can also add any sort of tags to your tasks by simply clicking onto it, opening up a side panel, going to the bottom to add a tag to further divide your work. So this might be for campaign number 2. And you'll also see that an unlimited number of reminders can be set per task. So I could set one for tomorrow at 5:50. And that's really there to enhance time management skills in an intent to help combat stress. More can also be done though regarding stress and feelings of being overwhelmed when the filter bar, which is found in the bottom left of our screen, is employed. By clicking on it, it opens up and it allows users to focus on specific items of work by filtering the task down on their taskboard, whether that be by those tasks assigned to them, or maybe people who they're off on holiday, which they're helping out, if it's got any attachments, when the start date is, etc. But by applying a filter, as you can see, everything else is forgotten and just the chosen important tasks remain. But then, if the user then wants to see the big picture again and everything which they've got going on in the taskboard, they can just remove all the filters from the bottom by clicking on the cross, and everything else reappears once more. So whilst that is a good way to minimize negative feelings such as stress, and that's always good to think about, it's equally important to maximize positive feelings too. And with Ayoa tasks, this can be achieved with the progress bar. You'll see that when I open up a task and go to the progress bar here and slide it along, let's say to 70%, it is updated and visually reflected on our task with a proportionate ring going 70% of the way around, negating the need for lengthy and wordy communication, because at a glance, everyone can see how everyone's getting along. But when I slide the progress bar all the way to 100%, you complete the task and other members can send a message of congratulations nice and easily to those whose responsibility it was. Similar to the progress bar in that they also articulate themselves visually are the urgency and importance indicators, which are found just below the progress bar. It's down to personal preference how they are implemented, but once that is decided upon, you could click on the lightning strike and then the orange box to symbolize that something was mildly urgent, or the flag, and then the red box to show that something's really important. And as you can see, once again, they are reflected on our tasks, nice and visually, ensuring clear communication without the need for words to show what is a priority. So they are some of the ways which Ayoa's taskboards are set out to help people with neurological differences. Primarily, this is achieved by the flexibility, the various styles, and how it assists organization. But as I've just shown you, it is also very colourful, intuitive, conveys a lot via imagery, and also can be condensed to increase focus, along with reducing stress. Although mind maps and task boards form the basis of Ayoa, we do have other capabilities lying about too. And a really good one to showcase to you for the neurodivergent community is that of My Planner, just located to the left of the notifications megaphone at the top of your screen. This appears to be yet another workflow task board, but it is actually different in certain ways. First of all, it is solely for the user's own personal use. They cannot collaborate with others via it. Another major difference is that the category names of now, next, and soon can't be changed. They have been selected due to how they are frequently applied as the pictorial exchange communication system used frequently with children with autism and Asperger's, and that it is also adopted by a Kanban style of working. As a result, these two methods mean that this format, which we are currently seeing on our screen, is very familiar to a lot of people and can help them manage their overall workload. We therefore have My Planner available to users so that they can do just that, manage their overall workload. This is because more often than not, people will have a task board per project, but in reality, they'll be engaging with more than one at a time. To assess their entire workload, they can therefore click on this banner on the left-hand side of the screen called Unplanned Tasks. This will load up all the tasks they've ever been assigned across all of their different task boards and mind maps. Once they have done so, they can simply drag and drop it into the right category of either now, next, and soon. And then once it is done, it functions just like any other task board. Returning to the top of our screen now quickly and moving across to this icon here to the left of My Planner, you will see us open up a feature known as Team Pulse. This was specifically built as a result to the events of 2020 in another bid to try and bring teams closer together despite remote working. It supports an asynchronous style of working, which is particularly popular with neurodivergent employees, and also functions to help with well-being. How Team Pulse works is that at the start of every day, employees are encouraged to say hello and input what they are going to be working on, like we can see here in this example. The result is that everyone knows what to expect from each other, so hopefully nobody should be diverted from their principal objectives. But thanks to the comments button below each team pulse here, it also encourages colleagues to strike up conversations with each other if they think they have some input to share, which could be of help. It's therefore a solution to those impromptu conversations which sometimes happens between colleagues in different departments by bumping into each other, for example, which could in fact lead to major breakthroughs due to other perspectives being offered. It's also really good for employee well-being, thanks to how it promotes more interaction between them and also gives individuals the opportunity to see what they achieved by looking back at their previous team pulses from days gone by. And finally, another way for people to communicate with each other in Ayoa and maintain their levels of interaction is Ayoa Chat. This can be found in the very top left of people's screens by clicking on this message icon. It will then open up a banner on your left, which is available to access whenever you are in any sort of element of Ayoa, whether it be a mind map, a task board, or anything else. And it basically functions like any other messaging system. So if you think of Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, for example, because you can have group chats like I've got here, you can send emojis, react with emojis, you can speak to individuals and upload attachments. And from now on, you can also click on the video icon to quickly skip into a video call if you so wish. And on that note, where we are really focusing on how we can still bring people together during this time, I think it would be good to wrap up what we have for today. We appreciate that Ayoa isn't right for everyone because we are all different after all. But with the format of our software and the features I have shown you today, despite them ostensibly being small adjustments and changes, we know already that they make big differences to people with neurological differences. Obviously, implementing Ayoa will directly benefit neurodivergent individuals, but also those who they work alongside as an immediate consequence of leveling the playing field. We recognize the importance and value of neurodiversity and therefore want others to likewise by making So by making Ayoa Neuro Inclusive, we hope that not just individuals, nor just some companies, but societies as a whole will come to realize that through greater diversity and inclusion, more can be achieved for the benefit of everyone. Times are undeniably strange right now, but finding a way for the world to become more neuro inclusive is not just something we should do, it's also a must. For both people who have neurological differences and those who do not, it will undoubtedly result in benefits. And I'll end now on this poignant quote from Steve Silverman to explain why I think that truly is the case. He said that honoring and nurturing neurodiversity is civilization's best chance to thrive in an uncertain future. So thank you very much for everyone for your time and for listening. I'm just going to quickly go to a mind map now, which will be shared with all of you after today. Basically, it consists of all the resources we have put together and shared to promote neurodiversity. You'll see in the green over here, we've got recordings of our interactive webinars we did earlier in the year. In the blue over here, we've got all the blogs that we have published. And if you click on any attachment icon, and then the link which appears here, it will take you directly through to the relevant resource, like I've just shown you now. But hopefully that will be shared with you after today. And also at the very bottom in the purple, if you'd like to get in touch with me, might be because you're a DSA assessor or workplace needs assessor. So we will therefore give you free access to AL. Or if you're interested in using it as a team for corporate purposes, we'll therefore give you a 2-week free trial of AL. Either way, for whatever reason, or if you just want to ask a question, go down to the purple get in contact section, hover over the notes icon, and as you can see when you scroll down, my email address is there for you to get in contact with me. And I'll also put this into the chat now if anyone would like it. So thank you once again for your time. I hope you found it interesting to learn about Ayoa and what we've been doing, and I'll hand back over to Connor now to see if we've got any questions for a Q&A. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ross. So we've had a question from Jennifer. Does the software have a high demand on RAM and operational power of computers? What are the minimum and optimum specifications in regards to RAM?
So I don't know that off the top of my head, but because Ayoa does work within a browser, it's traditionally a lot lower than having to install it onto a desktop. Like we had an example of a student get in touch with us the other day to tell us about how because they had maybe a less powerful computer, they couldn't actually download the desktop version of Ayoa, but they were able to run it just in their browser. So in comparison to some other hefty pieces of software, that shouldn't be an issue for us.
Thanks. Elaine has said, this looks great. How easy is it to train yourself up on use of the software?
So we like to think that we're quite an intuitive piece of software, but nevertheless, a lot of trainers and needs assessors are becoming aware of Ayoa. Obviously, we're a new piece of software. We've only really come into the space end of 2019, going into 2020, but we're still promoting ourselves. We also run weekly webinars, which provides coaching on how to use Ayoa. And in those instances where people would like maybe some neuro-specific training, we do have some trainers which we can recommend to get you in touch with. But like I said at the start, we are quite an intuitive piece of software, and we've got loads of how-to guides available.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so Tom has said, if working on project with other students, do all students need a copy of the software?
So there's a variety of ways from which you can collaborate with other people. So if I just go back to maybe our book review mind map, and I go to the top right where we've got the add button, this pop-up and then this bar will select everyone you've ever collaborated within Ayoa before. So they'll already have an Ayoa account, and it will also show people in your Ayoa team if you've got an Ayoa team account. So those people would all need to pay for an Ayoa account, but in the instance that they haven't paid for an Ayoa account, it might be someone who doesn't get DSA grant. You can just type their email address into this bar, and when you add them to the mind map, they'll receive an email from us inviting them to sign up to the free version of Ayoa, and they'll also be added to your mind map so that you can collaborate with them. And the same goes for the Taskboards. The free version, which I'm referencing, it basically gives you the same functionality as most users do within Ayoa, but there are some limitations because we can't just throw it out there, unfortunately. And the main ones are that a free user is limited to 5 mind maps and taskboards in total. They can't have any more than that. They can't upload attachments, and they don't have access to the Gantt timeline, which I showed you briefly. But apart from that, most of the functionality is still there, and you can definitely collaborate with each other.
Thanks, Ross.
Right.
Just give it a couple moments, see if there's any more questions.
Something to note whilst we're waiting, if there are a few more questions, is that hopefully by the end of November, we're going to have a big update, which will see Ayoa also incorporate digital whiteboards. So sort of evolving. We're still going to bring our mind mapping and our task management with us, and it just means that everyone will be able to pull their resources onto an expansive digital whiteboard. So you can throw your mind maps, your task boards, additional notes, checklists, you can freehand draw, etc. So it's going to become even more visual than before, but that's hopefully going to be coming up by the end of November if people are interested.
Okay, so we've had a question from Lisa. Can AT trainers be issued with a copy for training students / access to work clients?
Yeah, 100%. So the email that I just showed with you guys a minute ago, rmcgee@opengenius.com. It will also be shared with you after today. I put it in the chat. If you just want to get in contact with me, let me know that you're an AT trainer, a study skills tutor, a DSA assessor, or a workplace needs assessor, and we'll be happy to issue you with a free license of Ayoa.
Thanks, Ross. So Jennifer's asked, how about saving maps? Are they saved remotely on a cloud or locally on a computer?
So if you use the browser option, like I'm currently doing now, it will upload to the cloud and save by that way. We use the Amazon Web Service, which is one of the most secure cloud providers. We're used by massive corporations such as the BBC, Continental Tires, and massive pharmaceutical companies in the US, all of which we've had to pass security tests. We don't need to worry about that when it comes to the cloud. We're also G Cloud approved, which basically means that any government organization can use us without having to do their own security checks when it comes to being a cloud piece of software. So we're all really secure when it comes to that. But if you choose to download the desktop version of us, you can actually save hard copies of your mind maps onto your device if you so wish, and they'll also be backed up to the cloud whenever you get internet connection.
Thanks, Ross.
It's okay.
Any more for any more? Thank you to Lisa and Elaine. They both said it was a good session, so thank you for that.
That's good.
I think that pretty much wraps it up. So thank you all very much for your time. I'll send a follow-up email with the details Ross has mentioned as well. And yeah, thanks very much for attending.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.